going to be a great conversation. You know, the conversation on the topic of the day. Usually these are supposed to be a little bit more fun. You know, that's what I originally intended to be, just hanging out and shooting the shit. But today's topic, I wanted to talk about medications, and specifically antidepressants, antipsychotics, stuff like that. My experience with them, how I feel about them, and you know, what benefits and what consequences I see when people are on them. Now, this is all just going to be everything that I've experienced in my life on these, my experiences with people I've known that have been on them, because it's a touchy subject, you know. A lot of people, you know, that are on like antidepressants and stuff like that, you know, they're all for it, and they'll stand by it like it changed their lives and made them function and all that stuff. And that's a great argument. That's why I'm just speaking from me, you know, and what I've dealt with and what I've seen and how it goes for me. So my experience with antidepressants and stuff like that stems back to when I was a teenager. I used, and I still to this day use, like, my common sense. And I've always been anti anything that's you think if you put into your body somehow is going to change, you know, feeling about something and dealing with something in your life. And, you know, what are antidepressants anyway? You know, they're supposed to treat depression, anxiety, all kinds of shit. And I'm a guy who suffered from anxiety and depression since I was a kid. You know, when I was a kid, to give you a little bit of history here, I used to have anxiety attacks all the time. I used to get so excited to, like, go do something that I would, like, break down into tears and become hysterical, to say the least. And I just remember my folks being like, "Nah, he's having an anxiety attack. It'll be fine." And, you know, back then, this is the 80s, early 90s, you know, nobody cared. Like, it was just like, yeah, just let it happen, you know. Now today, if someone has a tantrum like that, everybody's like, "Oh, throw some drugs at them." So when I was going through these anxiety attacks as a kid, you know, it usually was either separation anxiety for me, or it was anxiety from just getting too excited about something. Like when we would take trips as a kid and go to places, like I used to go to Santa's Village. That was something I always look forward to in the summertime. I'd be so excited to go that I would literally have an anxiety attack before we went, and would, like, just cry and wouldn't be able to go because of how excited I was. I mean, it's fucked up if you think about it. You know, looking back on it, I go, why was I so, like, what? You know, because I think as a kid, I just wasn't able to deal with anything. I don't know. But point is, you know, and then eventually when I became like older and an adolescent, you know, I suffered depression, always anxious. You know, I would always not compare myself to other people and never think I was good enough. I was very shy. I was a very shy kid, very timid. Like, I just looked like, you know, I was a fat, shy kid with glasses, and I just sat there and keep to myself. You know, I didn't even want to go by my own family members. You know, a lot of the time I would just go by my mother. I wouldn't go by anyone else. I was super, you know, that hide behind the leg thing. I was that kid. So it explains a lot in the future. I was that kid. And, you know, when I became older and, like, a teenager and went to high school, you know, there was always that talk like, oh, maybe if you're depressed, you know, take these antidepressants, you know, fucking Prozac and all that stuff. And when I was in high school, I became a rational thinker, and common sense really started to kick in for me. And when I had that common sense in high school about taking antidepressants and stuff like that, hey, Christy, I would, you know, I understood what the treatment for, like, that stuff was. Like, maybe treat depression, like, you're feeling blue, you're feeling sad, you know, you don't want to feel that way, whatever the case may be. Maybe you have a chemical imbalance. I don't know. Everybody's different. I'm just speaking for myself. And I remember, you know, it says treats this. And then when you look on the side of, hello, of an antidepressant pill, you see all these warnings about, they say it's side effects or may cause this. It's just really effects if you think about it. Not side effects, they're effects. Like, if you've had suicidal thoughts, you must be monitored while taking this drug because it may make you want to kill yourself and also may cause more depression and more anxiety and all this and that. You've seen it. If you ever read a label, a warning label on antidepressants or anything like that, it tells you like this is a possibility. That's why you have to, talk to a psychiatrist or your doctor and this and that and the other thing. But my opinion on that is I believe that stuff like antidepressants, things like that, are just misdiagnosed, way overprescribed, and people depend on them to fix stuff that's not what I think needs to be fixed, in my opinion. It's more like you never gained the social, emotional skills in order to deal with a situation. And I didn't until I was much older, until I became 30 years old, that I really gained the social maturity to deal with a lot of issues in my life. But I remember being in high school and seeing that, and I was like, why would you take these pills and, expect it to be good? And, back then, of course I popped one here and there. Like, we gank one from my buddy's mom, who was on, I think it was Prozac at the time. And, we just take it, right? Oh, woo! And, there's like that, almost like the first time I think I took an antidepressant, I felt like this almost like euphoric feeling. But I do remember, since I only took one and I didn't consistently take it, I remember having the worst headache after it wore off. Like, it was just fucking terrible. It was in such pain. Like, it felt like somebody had my head in a vice grip after it wore off. And I was like, fuck that. Why would you take that? And, I think I did it at least a couple other times, here and there. And the same thing would happen, wear off and just like a massive headache. So I was like, I think I'm good, And then I've always been anti this stuff. And I understand, like, a lot of people have real mental illness, because this is why it's a touchy subject. Nobody wants to talk about it because mental illness. But you know what I've also realized lately? People are talking like mental illness like it's such a fad. Like, it's almost like a thing to just have. Like, oh, I'm mentally ill. That's why I'm fucked up. And people just kind of go with it. And that drives me insane, because it's an insult to people who actually suffer from real serious mental illnesses and need to be on certain medications in order to function. And then there's the other side of it, which is what I believe majority of people are just misdiagnosed, overprescribed, and this sort of thing. Because it's like this. And I'm going to keep talking about my experience and how I've come to this conclusion. For myself, mine comes from a background of addiction. And I'm a recovered alcoholic, for those of you who didn't know. Well, now you do. I have been sober since December 6, 2014. That's my sobriety date. I haven't taken a drink since. I was a hardcore alcoholic, where alcohol, for me, fucked up my life, and I couldn't stop for years. I spent a better part of my 20s at the bottom of a vodka bottle. So, what does that have to do with antidepressants and stuff? Well, it has a lot to do with what I think about putting chemicals in general into your body that we expect to either alter our moods, fix problems, deal with problems, ignore problems, distract us from what's really going on with ourselves. So the first time I tried to get sober, it was 2011, and I went to an outpatient treatment center, and I did outpatient for a while. And immediately when I was there, we had the option of, do you want to see a psychiatrist and maybe get put on some medication, some antidepressants and stuff like that? And since I was still stemmed from my earlier experiences, like where I was just like, you don't need that shit. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'll do the program, and I don't want to be put on medication. I just don't like the way it alters my feeling and stuff like that. So I decided to say, no. I'm in the program I'm doing outpatient for like 3 months. And, eventually in 3 months in, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should just try, medication for once, see what it does. I've never never been on it. And you know what? If they say it's possible, because you always had the option when you were there. You always had the option to see the psychiatrist. But then remember, an alcoholic person who's addicted to anything, and it doesn't just have to be drugs and alcohol. Addiction, compulsive personality like me, I have obsessive compulsive stuff, disorders, and I tend to be very about something. So I decided to go on an antidepressant. It was Celexa mixed with Abilify. And, when you read the fucking, the sidebar of all the effects of what it treats and then what it might actually do, it's like, don't get off this stuff. You might kill yourself. All that dumb warning shit. I still took it. And I remember the first time I took it, I got, it says this may make you nauseous or sick for like the first couple times you take it. Because, again, your body's getting used to it. And I've come to the conclusion that anything that your body makes you throw up for in order to change your physical makeup, in order to accept it, tells me naturally as just a biological human that that's not good for you. That's my common sense brain talking, going, it's probably not good for you, despite what it treats or what it can help, for me. So I remember taking Celexa and Abilify first time, and I took it, the first day I took it, I remember this was my ex-girlfriend's grandmother's funeral. And I was throwing up all day. I threw up consistently throughout the day. She actually had to pull over one time on the way to the funeral because I had to throw up, and it was just making me sick. So I was miserable that first day I took it, which was a dumb move on my part to take it the day of a funeral. I didn't think I was going to get sick, even though it warned me, but fuck, I got pretty sick. And I'm on this stuff because I was like 3 months into this program and I decided to get on it. And then I'm like, all right. So I'm on it for a while. And when I look at it in hindsight, I was so controlling about it. I was like, oh, I woke up. I got to take my pill right away. I got to take the Abilify with it. And as Abilify, they gave me free samples because at the time I didn't have health insurance or anything like that. So they're like, you can take the samples. And as the samples were running out, I look back on it and I'm like, oh, I need some more samples of that because I got to do it. They're like, okay, we'll get it. So they kept giving me free samples of Abilify, and I kept seeing myself. Dan, first thought was, got to take my pill. That was my first thought waking up. Take my pill so I can be okay. As I'm on this stuff for a few months, I'm still sober, but at that time I didn't feel good. I felt like a Terminator. I didn't feel much. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel anything really. I just felt kind of non-existent, and it didn't really change my attitude. I was actually a bigger asshole on that stuff. I had less empathy for others and less of an attention span. Didn't help me focus. Didn't help me deal with anything that I was supposed to deal with. Why I was, going off the rails and stuff. So eventually, I started drinking again, and I got off the stuff because you can't mix booze and antidepressants. It's real bad. Don't do it, folks. You could die. And I spent another 3.5 years going out drinking until when I decided to go to AA and get help and sit down, and I had no options. For me, alcoholism that's all it was for me. It was that. I was that guy who literally would all day think about drinking and nothing else, and it became that way, and that was my life for several years. And I'm happy to say today it's not that way anymore because I did something about it, and it was a lot of fucking work, and it still is. I still go to meetings regularly. I am sponsoring a fella. I've made a lot of improvements in my life because once you take away that substance, for me, because this is speaking from an addiction point, you take away the substance that was once, because my alcohol thing, like anybody, I used to love to drink because, one, I had anxiety and depression my whole life, right? But when you take a couple drinks, woo, you got no anxiety anymore. All of a sudden, you could talk to people. You're not shy. Everybody's social, So for me, it was a social catalyst, in the beginning when I was much younger, But the problem with me was always from day one of when I drank, I always wanted to drink to get drunk because I figured, what the hell's the point of drinking if you're not going to go all the way? You know, that's what I thought. And that's what I did. I drank to get drunk. I was never like, let's just have one or two and relax and then call it a night. I was like, fuck that. We're going to drink, kill that whole bottle. And once we throw it up, we're going to go again. No, I mean, that's an exaggeration at first, but I mean, it eventually got to that point. It eventually got to the point where it was, for me, it was bottles of vodka every day, man. I know that seems weird if you're hearing this for the first time because I've never really made it public knowledge, you know? But I think it's important to share stuff that you've accomplished and overcome in your life and is valuable to others who might be in need of it, you know? And this is what I try to do in my daily life, not on the internet. I'm on the internet to usually entertain and let people forget about the bullshit in their life, you know? But what you don't see is how I really live daily. You know, it's completely different from what I was doing 4 years ago. Completely different. I'm still the same crazy asshole I've always been in my life, but I see things from a fresh perspective because I took responsibility for my actions and my own bullshit and realized a lot of the time I was the problem. Excuse me. So, you know, and when I got sober, I still didn't want to take antidepressants, and I still am I come at this because I see when I'm in the rooms of people who are trying to clean themselves up and recover. And I know from experience, man, the first year sober, because I continued to do another few years of damage before I, decided to finally get in there. And I had a lot of intervention help. Like I really, seriously didn't want to. I mean, I wanted to, but I couldn't stop once I started. It was that bad. It really was that bad. And those who know me personally are aware. But let's just say that first year, I just focused on trying to get better and healthy, and it was so brutal. It was, I think about that year, and it was just painful. And the people that were around me, it was painful for even them to be around me. And I'm grateful, though, that they stayed. Those who did, you know who you are. So when I see, everybody and their mother is on some kind of upper or Adderall, Xanax, this and that, just to make you feel a little bit better. And coming from a man who suffered from anxiety and depression and then almost killed himself with alcohol, my stance on antidepressants hasn't changed. Even before alcohol was a major problem in my life, I always used common sense. Like when I would read those warning labels to say that this thing, if you're not monitored closely and you've had suicidal thoughts, you might kill yourself. And I know people are like, well, you should talk to your doctor and this and that. I'm like, doctors are just people too, folks. 100 years ago, the medical world thought a whole bunch of crazy shit and accepted certain things at the time. Today, information's changing, stuff changes. So to think something's going to stay the same forever is fucking crazy. And that's why, and people have been on these antidepressants and antipsychotics for too fucking long, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better for most people. Some people it is. I know some people that have been on that stuff and it helps. It's how they deal with shit. But I'm talking about people who, like for myself, who been on both sides of the fence, where I've been an addictive alcoholic and also a person who has suffered from anxiety and depression. There's like that instinctive urge that you just want something fixed so quick that you just want to just pop a pill, boom, hour later, oh, I feel so good. And whatever that is for depression, mood stabilizer, I don't know. But I could tell you this much, man. If you're suffering from something deeper than just fucking focusing on something or mood altering stuff, then there's a deeper issue at hand that you got to look deeper into your heart and soul to try to fix, because it goes a lot deeper than just, I'm depressed and have anxiety. So I see it, I sit around rooms of people who are all addicts and alcoholics, and you know, they're all trying to get help. And I always try to help people. And there's a lot of people, you can't trust yourself when you come in, especially, you know, this is from an addiction perspective too, because my experience with it is I couldn't trust myself the first year to make good decisions for myself, you know, because I wasn't making good decisions for a while. And I couldn't change everything overnight. I had to take it one day at a time, and eventually got here. Now look at me. I have not had a drink in a many 24 hours, and I am in the best shape of my life today. I've lost 60 pounds total. I started working out. I'm toned up. I look good. I feel fucking fantastic. And I don't have any antidepressant, antipsychotic stuff to help me through it. It was really, I felt like the best way to do it is to have no mood altering anything. Like, I don't even like taking allergy medicine because antihistamines for me alter my physical being and make me irritable. And even that little bit, which is not just that, puts me in a state of flux in my mind. And that's because I'm a fucking recovered alcoholic. I have to do that shit. And they're like, well, that's you, Matt. That's not everybody else. I go, no. But I also see people who try to, they're so scared sometimes to not have that there, to see what life's like without that stuff. Like, how do you know if you can't get fixed if you don't have that stuff? Like, I've known people on stuff forever. I know people that are just trying to get on stuff. I know people, I was that way. You know, when I was younger and naive, I wanted to just take a pill and forget about life or drink and just be like, everything's great. But all that does is cover up everything you're dealing with. Everything you are dealing with, because it's a deeper issue. You know, for me, when drinking stopped being fun and it just started being a lifestyle for me, it became because I wasn't living up to expectations. I compared my life to everybody else around me, what they had, the job they had, the money they had, the car they had, stuff, things, people, places, women, all this shit. I was just comparing all these external forces to try to make me better. And that's what drove me to literal almost death. And I think there's a lot of that going on, man. And then social media doesn't help when you're up there seeing everybody. It's like, I just bought a house. And you're like, oh, I don't have that. And it makes you, in your mind, mentally fucks with you. But you have to realize this, folks. At least I did. I've had tons of external things. Money. I've had all the gizmos, gadgets, and fun. I've been places. All those external things don't fix an internal problem. If you're really depressed or anxious, there's not enough money in the world. There's not a job in the world. There's not the right person in the world that's going to make you okay. You have to look deeper than that. And what I found is taking responsibility for my actions and my behaviors and really trying to adjust it, not to what I think, you know, in this world, but not of it. I don't have to be a part of the bullshit nonsense that causes anxiety and stress. You know, and I've talked about this before. You know, if you're on social media and you're just looking at other people's lives, remember that what people post is the good stuff that's happening. You don't always know people's struggles, man. And I know some people's struggles when they're posting stuff. And, you know, when you see that and you talk to them, what's really going on in their life, because most of the time it's bullshit. I'm not saying don't be happy and, like, not post good shit that happens in your life. Like, you know, your kid's born, obviously, yeah, do that. But I'm talking about, like, oh my God, I'm at Cirque du Soleil. I'm so excited. Nobody gives a shit. But in reality, you're pissed off at your significant other that you're even there because you didn't really want to go, but you want to look like you're having a good time. You know, there's like this false reality that we try to live in, folks. We try to live in this false reality, and social media is a big key to that false reality because everybody's comparing lives. See, back in the day, before all this shit, you could see what everybody was doing 24/7. You didn't care. You would just call up your friend and be like, what's up, Billy? How you doing? Oh, shit, I just got this new job. Oh, good for you. And then you can compare. Now it's like, oh, shit. so-and-so just got their bachelor's degree. And you know what? Who cares? Having an education doesn't make you smarter. You can educate yourself without going to school and wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars on fucking college that you're going to owe in student loans anyway. Remember that, folks. College campuses are dead. I have become so much more informed in the last 4 years than I ever learned in any amount of schooling I ever had because of the internet. So there's always a plus side. There's a plus side to everything, and there's a minus. There's pros and cons to everything in life. But back to the medication thing. When you get the antidepressants, man, some people, for me, it just doesn't work. I've been on them. I felt like a Terminator. It didn't work. And when you get off of those things, it's that initial getting off of it that seems so scary because your body, you are, like for me, I pumped so much booze into my body that it physically altered my brain chemistry, my nervous system, everything. So it took me a long time to heal. And when you're in a state of recovery like that, people aren't willing to go through the time it takes for your body to heal. And it's a long time, folks, a couple years at least, for you to really get back on track. You know, that's why they say like a year or so, at least, for you, because it's not only about staying sober, it's about you're physically sick and fucked up for a long time. And when you're like that, and you're like me, who's compulsive, want to just instant gratification right now thing, you want something that's going to take that pain away that minute. But I've learned you got to push through that, because in the mid to long-term goals, man, if you can stick it out and do other forms without just relying on this hardcore medication, there are other ways to deal with pain, and there are other ways, more healthy ways that you can figure that shit out. And I know it sucks. I know when your mind's racing 1,000 miles, because I've been there, where it's an 11 up here and everything's going in all directions. I was there, man. Early sobriety for me was fucking crazy. But I'm telling you this from a man who went and relied on a substance to not. And when you just go to the doctor and you tell them, I feel depressed, they're like, here's a prescription. Like, I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people do suffer hardcore and need that shit. So I'm not saying don't ever do this, but I'm saying I think a majority of people can do without, if you're willing to try alternative methods, man. There's so many, just eating healthier. I changed my diet and eating habits once I got sober too. I had to taper off over time. It took me a couple years, folks. It is not something that happened. I didn't go, whoa, tomorrow I'm quitting everything and everything's fucking great. No, it took me a long fucking time to be this. A long fucking time. And I did a lot of work. And the problem I found, with myself included, was how much work was I willing to do on a day-to-day? How much work are you willing to put in? Most people aren't willing. They'd rather just pop that pill and go to work. I'm fine. And I get it. I've been on Adderall and shit like that. I'm already squirrely naturally by drinking too much caffeine. Can you imagine if I was on Adderall right now and we were doing this live stream? Holy fuck. I think I talk fast now. So I think for most people, I'm speaking mostly from an addiction side. If you have a problem with drugs and alcohol and you're getting clean and sober, you got to work on yourself. You got to take responsibility for your actions, learn that you're the problem, and then also start to learn to change your attitude and perception on life. And you do that by working with people who have already been down that road. But normal people who don't have that problem with drugs and alcohol, if you're just feeling a little blue, this can work for you too. You can, just by simply acknowledging your patterns of behavior, can help you recognize what's going wrong, and you could do something about it. So I changed my patterns once I got sober. I go, you know what? I was eating, again, I was physically sick. So my brain, my nervous system's all fucked up. So I had to let my body heal. And, in the beginning, I was eating a quart of ice cream every other day because my body craved the sugar, right? Because I was an alcoholic, so it needed that. And my body and my brain are like, hey, man, where's all that stuff we had? And I had to slowly over time taper off the sweets and the sugars and the compulsive eating and the soda. I cut out pop was one of the first things I did. Sugar. I realized sugar was terrible, right? So I had to eliminate sugar as much as possible. I still like my sweets, you know. I had to slowly taper myself off this stuff. Sugar. I ate a lot of caffeine in the beginning. I was drinking like coffee like crazy, like pots of black coffee, energy shots, all that stuff. I still have caffeine. Obviously, I'm drinking a double shot here, you know, because I do that. But for the most part, I had to make a conscious effort on a day-to-day and not major changes. Like, don't set yourself up for failure. That was my point, was I couldn't set myself up to an expectation of like, hey, you know, when people decide they want to go on a fucking lose some weight, oh, that's it, I'm joining the gym tomorrow, I'm going to go for 3-4 hours and just fucking gung-ho. So you're already setting yourself up for failure because you're going to get burnt out quick. You got to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about who you are, because you know yourself better than anybody does. No doctor, no friend, you do. You know your patterns of behavior. You know why you do things. You know how you behave. So you ask yourself, what are you willing to do to improve that stuff? And it takes gradual time and effort, man. And for me, I eventually changed just diet, man. And only up until 4 months ago did I decide I wanted to start working out. And all I do is free weightlifting in my house. I don't go to the gym because I'm not that guy. I've seen the results. Over 4 months of consistent lifting, and I've toned up a little bit. I'm much leaner than I'm the leanest I've ever been. Even when I was at 18 years old, I wasn't this lean. I still had, you know, like a puffy face, and this is thinned out, and it's like, oh my God. Because of better decisions today equal better results tomorrow. And I feel like we just want to hide from all of our pain by taking a pill or an antidepressant or an antipsychotic. And if you really have serious, if you're fucking happy this second, the next minute you drop down into bipolar crazy, then yeah, dude, you seriously talk. Hey, Joe, talk to a counselor or your doctor. But if you're like me, and I've been on both sides of the fence of addiction and then also normal sides, where I think most people are just over prescribed and misinformed by a lot of things, you know, by a lot of these medications. And you really need to look deep into yourself and ask yourself, is this really good for you? Not because a doctor or a psychiatrist tells you. You got to look inside yourself and trust yourself. And if you're anybody who suffered from an addiction thing, it's hard to trust yourself. But I've been sober a long time, and I trust my decisions today about certain things. Hey, Erica. And I know that there's a better way. There's a healthier way, because human beings have been doing it for thousands of years, up until the last 50, 60 years of medications. Yo, what's up, Erica? He's talking about all kinds of stuff. And up until, you know, think about it, folks. Modern medicine's not that old. It's relatively new. So, and everybody gets on board with it, and that's what you learn. But, you know, the older I've got, I've realized I've been told a lot of bullshit and a lot of things that are nonsense. And for the last 4 years, I have been weeding through the bullshit and nonsense to find good information, and I try to relay that to people by my own experiences. You know, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not trying to say this is the right or wrong way. It's not right or wrong. I'm just telling you from my experience, because we don't talk about it. People want to go to a doctor or a psychiatrist and be like, I am anxiety. Here's some medication. I can't focus. Here's some fucking Adderall. I can't sleep. Here's something for that. And I've honestly found that you can fix that by changing your perception on life by talking about your issues, by looking and listening to other people's experiences, and also by just eating better, minimal exercise. You don't have to run fucking marathons, be an athlete, but just, you know, a little cardio, a little weightlifting will burn fat off. Diet, I would tell people, once I started really eating healthier, and what I do now is I really just eat a lot of fucking meat. I eat steak like crazy and lots of protein, and I feel great. I'm not tired that much anymore. I don't need to take naps in the middle of the day. I feel amazing. Because I look at it like this. Pretend it's 200 years ago and there is no modern medicine or grocery stores. What did people eat? Meat, vegetables, they had farms, they hunted. So when you pretend like there's nothing that exists, like in the grocery store, all this processed bullshit and everything with soy and sugar, if you just stick to meat and veggies, you'll be fine. Fucking diets, whatever, go do some research on it. But I found for me that eating mostly protein and stuff like that is what works for me. So if you're on these medications and stuff like that, folks, and you still don't feel good, that's a clear sign that there's another way to try to do that stuff. I believe so anyway. You can deal with your emotions and things in life if you actually try. But the problem is we're not willing to try. We want to have a quick fix. So if it helps you, I feel like they're a nice Band-Aid. It's a nice Band-Aid to cover up something, to get you over initial hump. But long term, I feel, even if you're not an addict or anything like that, it's like, it's just not good, man. Especially if you are an addict, though, it's like even worse, because you know you didn't take that shit normally, you know? God damn it. Sorry. Now the cat's being messy. All right. Too many interruptions, and I think I've bitched, moaned, and complained enough about this topic. Oh, there's a hole in my lip. All right. Well, whoops. Ah, fuck. Making a mess here. All right. So that's just my experience on this stuff, guys, is, you know, we're so dependent on some substance to fix us internally because we're so scared to deal with what's going on up here. And to be honest, folks, this isn't as bad as reality actually is. The shit that I can come up with in my head and the delusional thinking and the crazy thoughts I have is nothing compared to what reality actually is, which is usually, it's okay. Everything's really fine. But we tend to exaggerate and think about things way more crazier than ever. And, oh, God damn it. Come on, cat. Get. Come here. Get out of here. Jesus. Isn't it great when you have, like, when you're alive and you can't edit this shit out? But then again, isn't that better? At least it's real, it's honest, you know? Kids coming in, cats fucking it up. You know, because I could just, you know, I could have did all this in an edited video, which would have like got to the points, but I feel like serious discussions like this should just be talked about openly, you know? I've known too many people, myself included. It's just, it's like when you know there is a way, and then there was a time you didn't think there was any hope, and then you become aware of it. It's almost like I feel sad for people who can't get it but they're not willing to try to get to that point, you know? And they can. It does take, it's work, but it's doable. Don't let life distract you. Don't let the nonsense on social media, your life, fucking your job, your career, this and that distract you from you know, how you feel on the inside and dealing with that shit. You got to deal with that shit. And there's a way, folks. There's so many different ways. Reach out to people. Like, reach out to people with good perception, not people that just reinforce the bullshit that you're already living. Try to find good people in your life that understand and can help you. Sometimes it's not even your friends or family. Sometimes you have to go outside that. And that sucks. I love my family. I do, but I can't talk to them about the shit I do or the shit I've gone through. Seriously, you know, I can't have these discussions like with people I talk about that have even longer term sobriety than myself. Because we talk about solutions to problems, man. Because I'm in the business of solutions, man, not making more problems. And my heart goes out to people who struggle with, you know, addiction and alcoholism, especially because I know I'm a recovered alcoholic, man. And I was honestly the worst of the worst, you know? But I got myself out of it with the help of others. It wasn't just me, but I did the work. It was a slow process, but in hindsight, the few years I spent putting into that is a lifetime worth living. Here's a prime example of how you can change your life, folks. And I don't say that arrogantly, you know. I say that with a lot of compassion for other human beings that are struggling. Even if you don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol, like if you just are suffering from anxiety or something like that, there's a way to deal with it. Remember, nothing's wrong right now. Nothing. Everything really is fine. The things that you're thinking about aren't real. They're just worries of what ifs that may or may not even be happening. They don't exist. Right now exists. Whatever you're doing in that exact moment, that exists. That's real. That's reality. Up here, though, that's not real. That's where all your anxiety comes from. It's where your depression comes from. Stop looking at social media and comparing your life to other people, because even if people have all the bells and whistles, the toys, the house, the car, they're still human beings that are dealing with their emotions and have problems that occur in their life. They still suffer loss of people. They still deal with breakups, difficulties, things like that. There's other things in life than just stuff. Stuff does not bring you happiness. It doesn't. The pursuit of happiness is just that. It's a pursuit. It's the journey towards a goal that is actually more fulfilling than anything else. It's got nothing to do with the actual destination to where you get to that goal, you know. Once you get from point A to point B, guess what? Now you get to go to point B to C, and so on and so forth. So to end this whole thing about medications is, yeah, I've always had a strong opinion against antidepressants and psychotics and anything that's going to alter your mood and physically change your body chemistry. There's a really good book out there. It's called Healing the Addicted Brain. And it talks about what you go through physically with early recovery if you're an addict or alcoholic, and because it's not talked about enough. You know, there's this whole spiritual side of you that's got to change and take your responsibilities, and that's true. But you got to remember, if you're an addict or alcoholic and you first come in, you're physically sick for a long time. You know, if you get surgery, you don't just heal the next day. You got to go through some physical therapy. It takes time to heal those wounds. It takes time for your body to repair. It takes time for your mind to repair. And what sucks is I see it more with addicts and alcoholics. They don't want to take that time. And I understand the fear. Because it's not that you don't want to, it's the fear of how you feel without those crutches. And when you feel shitty and it feels like the world's closing in on you, it sucks. But it's not real, because that's not reality. It gets so much better. And for anybody out there who's just basic depression, change your diet. do a little exercise, you'll be fine. It's really simple, man. And don't be on social media looking at bullshit. Find something that's going to enhance your thoughts rather than just distract you from them. You know, and that's hard to do sometimes for some people, I guess. For me, you know, I used to love just stupid ass mindless entertainment. Don't get me wrong, I still do. I like to just sometimes be like, you know what? I just want to watch trains versus things. An hour of trains just running into shit. Sometimes that's fun. But, you know, sometimes. But I really don't distract myself much from my my feelings today. I really try to just deal with stuff head on, you know, and I try to do that without, you know, caffeine's like my drug today. So one thing that I don't give up, but you know, even if I have too much of this, it tires me out. You know, I get tired, and because I know how much to gauge today, how much I can have, how much I should have, and it's trial and error. You know, it's a lot of trial and error for me in my life. Well, thank you all who popped in to say hello. Christy, Joe, Erica, everybody that gave a like. If you get like this, like it. If you know anybody who's suffering from these mental disorders, addiction, anything like that, man, love on those people and, you know, try to get them some help. Not even if they want it. The thing is, I'm going to give you people, if you know anybody who's really battling, this is coming from a person who's recovered to you who doesn't know how to deal with those people. It only works for them if they want it. And you have to let them do it the way they're going to do it. You could do all kinds of stuff for them, but it's not going to matter unless those people really want it for themselves. And, you know, that's the reality of it. So don't, you know, don't worry about it too much. I've seen miracles happen with certain people, and people who continue to baffle me as I've seen people grow in this world. And that makes me know it's possible to give it this, like, it's possible to share this information with someone else and watch their life improve. And it doesn't always have to be about substance abuse, man. It could be from the littlest things to just reaching out and talking to people about what's going on in your life. And talking to people that actually help you find a solution is key, folks. Don't, you know, a lot of us have people in our lives that would just, you know, reinforce our venting, our bullshit, and be like, yeah, that's true, but that doesn't, an echo chamber doesn't help you find solutions. Because you could be wrong. I've been wrong. I have been wrong. And I will continue to be wrong in certain areas of my life. And from those wrongs, I really hope to improve myself. I honestly do. You know? And I do that by recognizing what I did wrong and try not to do that again, or at least improve upon it, you know? Awareness, man. Once you become aware of something in this world, you can't not know it, you know? And when it comes to medications and stuff, I'm just so aware of what it does. And when people are on them and they're hooked, man, they're just so convinced that if they don't have that, they're not going to be able to function. And if you only knew there's a better way, if you were to just try, and that's what sucks, is most people don't want to try because it's fear. It's fear of not knowing how you're going to be. It's fear of not knowing what happens on the other side. I was very fearful, very fearful that first year I was sober, because it had nothing to do with not drinking anymore. It was more like I didn't want to feel the pain of life without alcohol. And I had to. I honestly had to go through a short term of suffering to equal a lifetime of better things, you know, like where I'm at now. So, and that's that. I like to hear, if people watch this and you weren't in here live, you know, what are your thoughts on antidepressants, antipsychotics, you know? What are your experiences with them? Do you know anybody that was on them? Have you seen good things? Have you seen bad things? I mean, I like to know. It's a serious talk that it's just brushed upon as like this should be like, you know, there's something you discuss with your doctor. And it's like, no, man, I see too many people's lives going into shambles over this shit that I can't sit back, you know? I sat back when I was younger and didn't say much as a kid because I was so timid. And now today I have the experience to share information. I don't just say shit, I do shit too. I say what I do what I say. I don't just blast nonsense with nothing to back it up, man. That's what I've learned. Integrity. You know, I have a deep integrity. My integrity is important. If I stand alone, so be it. But at least I'm being honest with myself and I'm being honest with you folks. And that's it. And if you can't be honest in this world and you want to just go ahead and blend in with the crowd to look good, good luck. Good luck being happy because you're always going to be working to please other people than yourself, man. So thank you for those who came by, and I know this one was kind of deep, and it's just my experience and thoughts, man. That's just how I feel about this stuff. Am I right? Am I wrong? Neither. I don't like to label stuff. It's just, it is what it is, and I hope that sharing this can help either at least spark a discussion with people, you know, to get people talking about it instead of just pretending like it's not a problem, because it is a problem in this country and world that is really causing people to lose their fucking minds and kill themselves, you know? And I don't want to see people kill themselves over something that isn't real when they were completely fine. But the fear can be overwhelming, and there are so many ways to deal with it. So my suggestion to you, no matter what you are, if you're suffering from any of this stuff, just swallow your pride and ask for a little help. Try to do it without narcotics, and you can be successful. You really can. But you got to be willing, open-minded, be honest with yourself. And that's it.